being joined today by Michigan attorney Eric Melder, who is going to discuss some of the basics of filing bankruptcy. Mr. Melder, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you again for having me.
Mr. Melder, have you seen an increase in bankruptcy filings in this difficult economy?
Our office definitely has. In these tough times, people are having a real tough time making ends meet. And the problem is that there's not a lot of creditors that are willing to work with people. As a result, more and more people are needing the protection of bankruptcy to help them in these troubling times.
Wow, that's quite an increase. That certainly qualifies you to answer our question. So to begin with, can you please explain the difference between Chapter 7 bankruptcy and Chapter 13 bankruptcy?
Why, certainly. The Chapter 7 bankruptcy, or the fresh start, is when the debts, unsecured debts, which are typically credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, are basically thrown away or discharged. The individual gets that fresh start without having those bills kind of hanging over their head, the ability to start rebuilding their credit, start rebuilding their life. Chapter 13 is a little bit different. That's where all of these debts are kind of squished together, stretched out over time, and you pay back a percentage over what's called life of the plan or during the term of your bankruptcy. This still allows someone to come out of a bankruptcy without these debts, without having to worry about what's coming over their shoulder, and really start to rebuild their lives and their financial health.
Many people's biggest concern is staying in their home. So what happens to a home in bankruptcy?
Well, that's a great question. The law is pretty constant, but what has changed, obviously, is people's expectation and what people want to do regarding that home. As the housing market has fallen, many people are making very tough decisions about whether they want to keep that house or not. Bankruptcy is definitely a way, if they want to be able to keep that house. Bankruptcy is also a way, if they decide maybe they don't want to keep that house, to help them get rid of that debt, that unsecured debt called a deficiency debt, after their house has been foreclosed or even before their house has been foreclosed. Again, one of those types of issues is the exact type of issue as to why an experienced bankruptcy attorney should be consulted regarding all of these questions.
Can filing bankruptcy help with past due car payments or large medical bills?
Most definitely. Filing a bankruptcy, both a 7 and a 13, can help an individual with the past due bills. Whether those bills are large medical bills, car payments, personal loans, or credit cards, a bankruptcy is there to help the individual and to help give them some light at the end of that tunnel. And that's what a properly done bankruptcy plan done by a bankruptcy attorney can do for an individual.
How about people who are buried in credit card debt? What can bankruptcy do for them?
Well, bankruptcy can give them that life rope. Bankruptcy can allow them to pull themselves out of that hole and to start rebuilding their lives, their future, and their financial health.
Many people need relief from their debts immediately. Can you tell us a little about how long this bankruptcy process takes?
Certainly. One of the things to remember is that as soon as you file bankruptcy, there's something called the automatic freeze or a stay. What that does is it basically freezes or stays lawsuits, garnishments, foreclosures, evictions, all of that. It's frozen while this bankruptcy process is ongoing. So that's one of the reasons why the sooner you get to a bankruptcy attorney, the sooner relief can start. As far as the bankruptcy process, it really depends on the type of bankruptcy and what you're seeking to do from this bankruptcy. It's different for every individual. Chapter 7s obviously are much shorter time periods than Chapter 13s, but the specific amount really depends on the individual and the facts and circumstances surrounding their case. I suggest that any individual who has these questions or concerns give an attorney a call, have these questions answered by somebody who understands bankruptcy and how it can help them.
So what is the impact of a bankruptcy on a person's spouse?
Well, bankruptcy is is exactly done based upon a Social Security number. So as far as the direct credit impact on the spouse, it would not be affecting the spouse. But what I think most people don't address is that as a family unit, when a bankruptcy is being done by one member of the family unit, it does affect the other family members with the stress involved, with the amount of money that's going into the family unit, with the amount of debts that are still present in the family unit, things of that sort. You want to have an attorney explain these things, usually briefly to both spouses so that they can understand and be prepared for what's coming their way when they file for bankruptcy.
Finally, many people are concerned about the impact that a bankruptcy will have on their credit. Can a person ever get credit after having filed for bankruptcy?
That's a great question, and one that I hear all the time. And the answer is most definitely yes. What level and how quickly really depends on what the individual does after the bankruptcy. But yes, filing a bankruptcy does affect your credit. It does affect it negatively. But you are taking a person's credit, whose usually is not the best anyway, and allowing them to rebuild that credit from the ground up. You're allowing them to rebuild, to do things the right way, and to not have things hanging over their head and potential lawsuits, which, as we all know, further negatively affect someone's credit.
Sure. It sounds like bankruptcy is an excellent way for a person facing debt to get a fresh start. Is there anything important that we've missed here that you'd like to say to our viewers who are considering filing for bankruptcy?
One of the only things that I would say is that it's real important that when you're thinking about this as an option for either yourself or your spouse or the two of you together, that you speak to an experienced bankruptcy attorney. Many attorneys are trying this. Many individuals are trying this. Many companies are trying this with low cost, no cost, and they really aren't able to fully help explain or let you, the consumer, the individual, know how this is going to affect you short term, medium term, and long term. And you need to have all of that information before you undertake something like a bankruptcy. Our firm, Melder Melder, you call, you talk to an experienced bankruptcy attorney who can help you, who can explain these factors, and who can explain how a bankruptcy will impact you from point A to point Z.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.